Hello, I'm Mike, this is Will, we are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're bringing issue 15 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Mortal Realms magazine today. And this issue we finish off our Sigmarite Mausoleum. As always, if you want to skip straight to the battle report for this issue, there's a time code in the description. We're heading into the issue now. First off, we have some more backstories on some of the various storm hosts of the Stormcast Eternals, focusing particularly on the anvils of the Helden Hammer. So the ones with the black and gold armour, and how they're particularly dour individuals and grim and serious types. And now some more history here of the Realmgate Wars, so essentially the Stormcast fighting against the Forces of Chaos to control the Realm Gates, which allow passage between the various mortal realms, and some more specific battles here. And some background on the Flesh Eater Courts, so these are another part of the Forces of the Death, different from the Nighthaunt, and they're sort of ghouls and vampire types. Horrible blood-crazed monsters. And then a short story here about the anvils of the Helden Hammer facing off against the Flesh Eater Courts. And it mentions a little bit here about Retributors, the kind of heavy line-breaking units of the Stormcast Eternals with their big two-handed hammers. And we get onto our painting guide for the Mausoleum, so all the new terrain we got, plus the spire for the Mausoleum. And it's pretty much the same as painting the other parts of the Mausoleum, basically painting it black for some of the later bits. Doing blue for a lot of the stonework, that sort of thing. But there's still a lot to paint because there's all lots of leaves and skulls and flowers. But we'll get to that in a later issue. And with that brief look over, we'll be on to the playthrough for this issue.
Now we're on to our playthrough, Charge of the Harrow. The Nighthaunt continue to arrive at the Tomb Complex, and the Stormcast Eternals continue to try and hold them back, and they've brought up the Celestar Ballista to help defend their position. But now that the Dreadblade Harrows have arrived, they're making a concerted effort to try and destroy the Ballista and allow the Nighthaunt to pile in. Here is our battle setup. As you can see, we've got the new terrain on the board as well, so we'll have a full complement of scenery. On the Nighthaunt side, 1 Dreadblade Harrow and 10 Chain Rasps, and then the Stormcast Eternals have 5 Castigators and the Celestar Ballista on the far side of the board over there. The new thing we learn in this issue is about range of missile attacks. There'll be more on that in a second, but basically missile weapons don't have an unlimited range, so they can only shoot at enemies that are a certain distance away. And here's our war scrolls for everything that will be participating in the battle. We've seen all this before, there's no new extra things here, except that both the Castigators and the Ballista have a 18-inch range, which is the maximum distance they can shoot. Where there are melee weapons, they also have a range given as melee, so you just clear that they are to be used only in close combat. Over the page we learn how to check range, and it shows using the range ruler here. We're obviously using tape measures because it's easier, but if you only have a 12-inch range ruler, then you can just use your finger to mark a point and then measure from there. That's basically it. You just have to be within the distance marked on the war scroll for the weapon to be able to shoot. And there's some other things here like line of sight and allocating wounds, which you've seen all that before. And then the usual going through the phases and the turns just to demonstrate how everything works. And the only new thing that seems to be here, which is it mentions that if you are within 3 inches of an enemy unit and you have a shooting attack, it can only be directed at that enemy unit that was within 3 inches. So in other words, you can't shoot across the battlefield if you're engaged in close combat, which makes sense. But that is it. We will have a look at the battlefield and get straight into our game. Here is our full battle map with all the new terrain added and the models set up. So just quickly have a look at the new terrain. We've got the statue over here in the tomb complex, and we finally got the gate to go in the middle of the fences over here. Then the tombs in the graveyard section have their bases now, which, they don't really have any specific rules, they just make it look a bit nicer. There's the new walls and fences in the centre here, which might provide some line of sight blocking terrain. And over here the large mausoleum has the sort of weather vane thing on top. Right, I want to start at the spooky end of the board, and we've got the 10 Chain Rasps and 1 Dreadblade Harrow over here. He sets off to one side, but that's how it shows it in scenarios. And the Stormcast Eternals are this end in the Tomb Complex. We've got the 5 Castigators and the Celestar Ballista in the corner. The Nighthaunt gets to go first, so we'll be on to the first Nighthaunt turn.
That's on my turn. First, the Dreadblade Harrow is going to move up behind the Mausoleum. And the Chain Rasps ran, and I rolled a 5, so you can go 11 inches, and they're all going to cluster behind this little bit of wall to stay out of line of sight of the Ballista.
Well, that's all there is to do for the Nighthaunt, so on to the Stormcast. Now here we've all moved up. The Castigators move normally so they can shoot, or at least the ones that are in range, and the Ballista couldn't get in range, so I decided to run and I rolled a 3, so that just brought it up behind the Castigators, hopefully to be in range for a future turn. So now we'll be on to shooting. So the Castigators are going to shoot at the Dreadblade Harrow. Now the 4 in the front are all within range and can see him. The one at the back there is not in range, so I can't shoot. I could have got him in range, but it would have meant the unit was actually got a bit too close to the Dreadblade Harrows, so I want to keep them all together. So we have 4 shots hitting on 3s because he's not within range to get any benefit from Lookout Sir of the Chain Rasps. And there's 4 hits and no 6s, so just 4. He's wound on 3s. Oh, they're all wounded, okay.
4 plus saves. Made 2, failed 2. So he's down to 3 wounds.
Well, that's it. The Ballista ran, so it can't shoot, so we'll be on to Nighthaunt turn.
So on my turn, the Dreadblade Harrow moves up normally. It's 12 inches to get closer to the Stormcast, and the Chain Rasps ran and I rolled a 2, so they moved 8 inches through over the wall. And the Dreadblade is going to charge. We got an 8. So the Dreadblade is going to finish his charge like that, bringing these 2 Cascaders into base contact, so the Prime can't pile in, and the other 2 will have to go all the way around the statue if they want to get into combat. And the Ballista is also within 3 inches, but again it has to go all the way around.
And the Dreadblade Harrow gets to attack.
So I'll start with his sword. So he's got 3 attacks hitting on 3s. Oh, they all hit. Wounding on 3s. 2 wounds, and they're -1 rend.
And also 2 damage because he charged, so I get 5 plus saves effectively. Well, double 5, alright.
There you go. And then the horse gets to bite and kick, hitting on 4s, 2 hits, wounding on 5s, no wounds.
So I'm actually going to pick the Ballista to fight first. I don't think it'll be able to get into base contact to attack, because the crew now actually have a melee weapon. But it might be able to get out of the way slightly to allow the Castigators to pile in a bit more effectively. So basically they just shove the Ballista out of the way over there. It moves 3 inches, it can't attack because it's not in base contact. And then these other 2 Castigators have moved this way. Eventually they might be able to pile in all the way around and get into melee combat. So we've got 2 Castigators who can attack because the Prime is stuck there, he can't pile in to base contact. So they hit 2 attacks each, so 4 attacks hitting on 4s, 2 hits, and wounding on 4s, 2 wounds.
4 plus saves, made 1 failed 1, so down to 2 wounds.
But that's it for combat, so be on to the Stormcast turn. So I could retreat, but I'm not going to because if they retreat they can't shoot. So straight on to shooting, and we'll start with the Castigators. They have to shoot the Dreadblade Harrow because they're within 3 inches of him. So 5 shots, hitting on 3s, 3 hits, wounding on 3s, 2 wounds.
2 4 plus saves, made both.
So that means the Ballista has to shoot him as well because he's still within 3 inches of it. It has 4 shots that hit on 5s, but every hit is d6 hits. So we've got 1 hit, which turns into 3 hits. These wound on 3s. They all wound. We did learn, actually, this issue that you have a rend of -2, but that's irrelevant against Nighthaunt.
3 4 plus saves, failed 2, so he dies. Dreadblade goes down.
Well, that'll be it for my turn. I'm not going to declare any charges, so on to the Nighthaunt turn.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. The Chain Rasps are just going to move up, flying over the fence, and then we're going to charge. Getting 7. So we're going to end our charge like that, so we're within half an inch of the Ballista, and then we'll get to pile in. Chain Rasps will get to fight, and we're going to pile in like that, so we can get 8 of them into base contact with the Ballista or crew members. 2 batches of 8, so 16 attacks hitting on 4s. First 8 we get 4 hits, second 8 we get 3 hits, so 7 in total. Wounding on 4s, 2.
Ballista has a 4 plus save. We may pass both, so it doesn't take any damage. We'll fight with the Ballista first, and it just says it has 4 attacks with its Sigmarite blades. The unit has that, so it doesn't matter whether the models are in base contact, but I can still pile in the models, so that crewman has piled in over there. Basically, it'll allow another Castigator to get into the fight, and it is still within an inch of this crewman on the other side of the Chain Rasp. And then 4 attacks with Sigmarite blades, hitting on 4s, 3 hits, and wounding on 4s, 2 wounds.
5 plus save for the Chain Rasps, fail both, so the 2 engaged will die.
And the Castigators will pile in like so, as I said, allowing a third one to get into base contact over on the far side, and all staying within an inch mutually. 6 attacks hitting on 4s, not a 1. So that's the end of the Nighthaunt turn, on to the Stormcast turn. So as before, we're not going to retreat, we're just going to shoot. So starting with the Castigators, 5 shots hitting on 3s. Ooh, 3 6s. Wow. 2 hits plus 3d3. Well, for 4. Still, 6 hits. Wounding on 3s. 4.
5 plus saves. Ooh, made 3. Only 1 dies.
And the Ballista has 4 shots hitting on 5, so d6 hits. For 1. Wound on a 3. No. On to close combat. I'll pick the Ballista to fight first again, and this crew member will... Our crew member has piled in round a bit again, staying within an inch, but allowing a Castigator hopefully to get in. And then 4 attacks hitting on 4s. 3 hits again. Wounding on 4s. 2.
5 plus saves. Oh, made both.
Now the chain rasps get to attack because we alternate with fighting.
Yeah, we've got 7 left. We're going to put all our attacks on the Ballista. So I'll do 2 batches of 7, hitting on 4s. First 7 gets 5. Second 7 gets 5 as well. 10 hits in total. 10 hits, wounding on 4s. Wow, is that 8 wounds? Yeah.
4 plus saves for those 8 wounds. I failed 5, so the Ballista takes 5 wounds. It goes down to 2 remaining. And then the Castigators get to pile in and fight as well. Once again, that Castigator is piled in, just about stretching to keep everybody within an inch, but they can just about make it. 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, 4 hits. Wounding on 4s, nothing again. Castigators clearly not figured out how to use, or how to hit people. And that's it. So on to the Nighthaunt turn again.
So no movement, so straight to combat. We're just going to put all our attacks on the Ballista again, try and get rid of it. 2 batches of 7 again. 14 attacks hitting on 4s. First 7 we get 3. And then another 5, so that's 8 hits in total. Wounding on 4s. 3.
4 plus save. Oh, failed 2. That's it. That's enough to take it down. And the Ballista is destroyed, but now at least the Castigators can all pile in and fight now. They pile in like that. And they can all fight now, so we'll have 10 attacks hitting on 4s. For 8 hits.
Yeah, they're mad now as well.
Wounding on 4s. 3. They're improving.
5 plus saves. Made 1, failed 2, so we'll just take away 2 of the chain rasps that are at the edges.
And we'll be back onto the Stormcast turn. So shooting in melee, 5 shots hitting on 3s. Assuming they're good runs, so that's 4 hits plus D3. 5, so a 1. Wounding on 3s. Only 2 wounds though.
5 plus. Made 1, failed 1. Take away this guy.
Now on to combat phase again. And we'll pile in like that. And then 10 attacks hitting on 4s again. 5 hits. Wounding on 4s. 2.
5 plus saves. Failed 2, so 2 more go down. And then the 2 remaining chain rasps will get to fight back. 4 attacks hitting on 4s. 1 hit. Wounds on a 4. It doesn't. Straight to the Nighthaunt turn, where I get to fight again.
Yeah.
4 attacks hitting on 4s. 1 hit again. Yeah, it doesn't wound.
Now pile in like that, surround the remaining ones. And then 10 attacks hitting on 4s again. That's 4 hits. Wounding on 4s. 2.
5 plus. Made both.
So they're still alive. On to Stormcast turn. We'll shoot them 5 shots on 3, so another 6. So 4 plus 1 shot, 1 hit, 5 hits again. Wounding on 3s. Oh, they're all wounded this time. That's 5 wounds.
5 plus. Yeah, made 2, but they'll go down at last.
So the remaining chain rasps go down, and that will be a Stormcast Eternals victory. We'll leave it there because we don't think that playing this game again will yield a particularly different result. We'll talk about that a bit in the discussion, so we'll give you our thoughts on all that now. That was the playthrough for issue 15 of Age of Sigmar Mortal Realms magazine. How did you think that one went?
Not too dissimilar from how I would have expected. Well, just going to get shot a lot. I think a lot of it will come down to how well you roll for your shooting for the Castigators and the Ballista. And I think you didn't roll particularly well for the Ballista, but 1 good round shooting at the chain rasp will probably deal with them quite quickly. The Dreadblade, you made both your saves on his charge. It would just take him a really long time to get through all the Castigators and the Ballista, and you'd probably whittle him down.
Yeah, and that's really why we decided not to do a second game, because I did manage to deal with all your stuff, and that was even with rolling not rolling very well.
Yeah, you had a couple of bad rolls with your Castigators in melee. I mean, I rolled well and killed the Ballista, at least, but...
I guess you could potentially have kept the Dreadblade Harrow near the chain rasp for the lookout, sir, but the problem with that is that they're much slower than he is, so I probably would have got an extra round of shooting on him.
You need some good run rolls. You'd probably just shoot at the chain rasps then, with the Ballista, because you'd be hitting him on 6s, and the Castigators are still hitting on 4s, so...
And although we saw in the previous issue what the Dreadblade Harrows can do to Castigators if they get hold of them, firstly, in that game you had 2 of them, and secondly, I didn't have a Ballista in that one, which not only has 7 wounds, but obviously is a lot more dangerous than a Griffhound in general. Yeah, and I suppose you could have stayed back out of range for another turn, but it probably would have just been delaying the inevitable, really. Because obviously you could stay out of range, because, I don't know, I'm sort of actually surprised the Ballista only has an 18-inch range. It's just about being a war machine. I would have thought it would have longer range than the Castigators.
It does have an alternate firing mode, which I think does have a longer range, but only fires a single shot.
But yes, we haven't got the rules for that yet, have we? Yeah. So we didn't think that was going to give anything new from the second game, other than probably me rolling slightly better.
It is nice to have the full mausoleum terrain, but it's almost again clustered to the edges, and you have a big open ground. So I mean, I guess it maybe would be interesting to swap the deployment zones around and have the Stormcast in the graveyardy bit. Then the Nighthaunt would have cover.
Yeah, because if the Nighthaunt continue to start that end, and particularly if the Stormcast have shooting attacks, all the action's going to take place on the open end anyway, isn't it? Yeah. I guess also that ties into the fact that all the battles are pretty much just straight up, everybody kill each other. There's no...
capture the objective, or even if it's something like the Stormcast have to hold the gateway or something.
Yeah, there's no incentive for them to get closer, other than to get into range. And the melee units, I mean, yes, they can run up on attack, but then the downside of that is that cover is irrelevant when it's melee, so the terrain still doesn't really come into effect, it just gets in the way.
Yeah, and the Nighthaunt just fly over it.
Well, the Dreadblade Harrows, at least, are mostly too big to hide behind any of the terrain. I mean, you can position them so that they are completely covered, but...
Well, I think by the letter of the rules, as long as you can see any part of a model, you can shoot at it, and the Dreadblades are all holding their swords above their heads. I think some people like to play it so that a bit of trim or a weapon doesn't count as you seeing the model, if that's the only part you can see, but by the letter of the rules, it's any part of the model, so...
Well, and the same goes for the chain rasp with the candlestick, which is taller than the walls that they hide behind, so... But, I mean, I like the terrain personally. I think it's got quite a lot of character. An awful lot of skulls.
Yeah, lots of skulls and flowers.
I mean, obviously, you don't have to pick out each individual skull and flower, but then you're just going to have stone-coloured skulls and flowers.
Right.
So,
actually, no. I will complain about one bit of terrain is the skull on the statue by the statue's foot, where it's all really elongated, like it's a xenomorph skull or something. That doesn't look very good. And that's the only bit I can really complain about.
Yes, you can just about see it in the picture, I think. If you see it from the side, it does look
it's very obvious.
Quite strange. I think it is older terrain. I think it actually comes from the days of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, so that's why some of it is it looks quite a lot like what's now the Free Guild range, but
the old Empire stuff.
Yeah. But I think that's everything we have to say for this episode and this issue, so if you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe. Let us know your experiences with the magazine or with this game, if you've played it, or with the models, the terrain and all that sort of thing. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.